Private John Martin, born Giovanni Martino, was an Italian-American who played the trumpet in the U.S. Army's 7th Cavalry Regiment. He is remembered as one of the rare individuals who made it out alive from the Battle of the Little Bighorn, famously known as Custer's Last Stand, which occurred on June 25, 1876. Martin, originally from Italy and born in 1852, later moved to the U.S. and joined the military in 1873. He became part of the 7th Cavalry and served in several expeditions, including the infamous Battle of Little Bighorn. During that fight, Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer dispatched Martin with a message for Captain Frederick Benteen, making Martin among the final people to see Custer before he perished. Martin managed to survive and later recounted what he witnessed, and his story became a significant piece of historical evidence. Sometime before 8 a.m. on June 25th, Captain Benteen summoned me and instructed me to report to General Custer as his orderly trumpeter. At that time, the regiment had stopped to brew coffee following a night's march and was positioned a few miles from the ridge that separated the Rosebud and Little Bighorn rivers. We had strong indications that native forces were nearby, as we had seen several deserted camps over the past couple of days and had been following a trail from the Rosebud. The day before, we had even come across recently butchered buffalo carcasses. I personally approached the general, who simply gave me a nod in response. He was engaged in conversation with a native scout known as Bloody Knife. Bloody Knife was informing him about a sizable encampment in the valley, hundreds of Typees and thousands of Sioux. I sat a short distance away and overheard pieces of the exchange. Though I couldn't understand the scout's words, the general's questions and dialogue with the interpreter helped me piece together the message. That morning, the general was clad in a blue-gray flannel shirt, buckskin pants, and tall boots, wearing a standard-issue company hat. His signature yellow hair was trimmed, not extremely short but not flowing to his shoulders like before. Soon the general mounted his horse and rode bareback through the camp, conversing in quiet tones with officers and giving instructions. By 8:30, the unit was ready to move, and scouts had already gone ahead. We trailed behind a short while later, progressing at a slow pace. I was positioned just behind the general, about 2 yards back. After nearly 2 hours, we reached a steep ravine and paused. At that point, the general left with the scouts, while I remained behind with the adjutant. This was the moment he went to the lookout point at the ridge to try spotting the Sioux camp mentioned by Bloody Knife. He was away for quite some time. Upon returning, he was told that fresh pony tracks had been discovered nearby and that the Sioux now knew of our presence. Without delay, he had me sound the officer's call, which I did. This meant he realized the element of surprise was gone and there was no longer a need to stay silent. For the previous 2 days, we had avoided using the trumpet and taken great care to remain undetected. But the situation had changed. The officers responded quickly and conferred seriously with the general. The enlisted men were kept at a distance. After the meeting, the officers went back to their units. We resumed our advance, and by around midday, we had crossed the ridge. The general said something to the adjutant that I couldn't catch and gestured to the left. Moments later, Captain Benteen and 3 companies split from the column, heading in the direction the general indicated. I was curious since my company was one of them. The remainder of the regiment continued in 2 separate groups. Colonel Reno led 3 companies on the left, while General Custer took the other 5 on the right. I was right behind him as we moved alongside a narrow stream flowing toward the Little Bighorn River. Reno traveled along the left bank and we were on the right. Along the way, scouts came and went. The general would occasionally pause to hear them and sometimes dash ahead to survey the surroundings. At times, Reno's men were far off, and at others, they were close enough that the general would signal with his hat, prompting them to cross over to our side. Eventually, we reached an old, burning tipi containing the body of a warrior. The Indian scouts had set it ablaze. Nearby was a small hill where Scout Fred Gerard spotted some natives between us and the river. He alerted the general and pointed them out, claiming they were fleeing. The general instructed the scouts to give chase, but they refused. Then he signaled Colonel Reno to approach and had the adjutant instruct Reno to cross the river and strike the native village. The general said he would support him with the rest of the unit, attacking from the other end and sending Benteen to strike the village's center. Reno's 3 companies set off at a trot, heading to the river. We followed for a brief stretch, then veered right, continuing downstream at a gallop. We paused once to water the horses. The general was moving urgently. After about 1 or 2 miles, we arrived at a large hill overlooking the valley. We circled around it and came to a halt. Then the general took me with him to the summit, where we could view the village and the valley across the river. The settlement was massive, though from our vantage point we couldn't see all of it. Not that we realized it then. Hundreds of tipis were clearly visible. There were no warriors in sight, only women, children, dogs, and ponies. The general looked both shocked and pleased, saying the natives must still be sleeping in their lodges. We didn't spot Reno's unit during our time on the hill. I'm confident the general didn't see them either, as he scanned the area with his field glasses and exclaimed, "We've got them this time." Turning in the saddle, he removed his hat and waved it toward the troops waiting at the base of the hill. He shouted, "Hurrah, boys! We've got them! We'll wrap this up and return to our post." Afterward, we rode down and the general briefly conversed with the adjutant about what he had observed. We resumed at a brisk pace until we reached a large ravine leading toward the river. The general pointed it out and then summoned me. This was roughly a mile down from the earlier hill, and we had kept up a trotting and galloping pace the whole way. It was likely about 3 miles from where we had separated from Reno. He told me, "Orderly, take a message to Colonel Benteen. Ride hard and tell him to come quickly. Let him know it's a large village and I need him to bring the ammo packs fast." He didn't stop talking as he gave the order. I responded with, "Yes, sir," and was about to ride off when the adjutant said, "Hold on, orderly. I'll write it down." He quickly scribbled the message in a small notebook, tore the page out, handed it to me, and added, "Get to Colonel Benteen as fast as possible. Take the same route we used. If time and safety permit, return. If not, stay with your company." My horse was exhausted, but I pushed it forward as fast as I could. The last I saw of the group, they were descending into the ravine with the Gray Horse Company in the center, all galloping. The adjutant had told me to retrace our path, so within a few minutes I was back atop the hill where the general and I had viewed the village. But before I reached the crest, I heard gunfire behind me. Looking back, I saw warriors, some firing, others waving buffalo robes. They had been lying in wait. Just as I neared the top, I encountered Boston Custer riding at full speed. He slowed upon seeing me and yelled, "Where's the general?" I pointed behind me, saying, "Right past that ridge," and he sped off. That was the last time anyone saw him alive. From the hill, I saw Reno's unit engaged in battle. It had only been about 10 or 15 minutes since the general and I stood on that same hill, and back then not an Indian in sight, but now the area was swarming with them. They were circling and firing at Reno's troops, who had dismounted and spread into a skirmish line. I couldn't guess how many there were. It was a lot. I didn't stay to watch as my mission was urgent. I had to locate Colonel Benteen. The last image I had of Reno's men was them retreating while still fighting. Some natives noticed me and began firing. Several shots rang out around me. I believe 5 or so, but I was fortunate and wasn't hit. My horse, though, had taken a bullet to the hip, something I wouldn't notice until later. The day was extremely hot, and my horse was overheating, but I kept going. I didn't know where exactly Colonel Benteen was, but I was determined to find him. I backtracked to the watering hole and searched the area. Soon I spotted Benteen's unit advancing. By that time I had slowed to a trot. My horse was spent, and I scanned everywhere for Colonel Benteen. When I saw the column, I waved my hat and urged my mount forward, but he couldn't go faster. It wasn't long before I reached Benteen. He was riding well ahead of his troops with his trumpeter at a swift pace. Closest behind was Captain Weir, leading his company from a distance of about 200-300 yards. I saluted, handed Benteen the message, and relayed the general's words about the large village and the need for speed. He asked, "Where's the general now?" I replied that the natives we saw had been fleeing and assumed the general had already charged into the village. I wanted to mention that Reno was also engaged, but Benteen interrupted me. He looked at my horse and asked, "What's wrong with him?" I answered, "Probably just worn out." Benteen responded, "Worn out? Look at his hip." That's when I saw the wound and the blood. He remarked, "Lucky it hit your horse and not you." Just then, Captain Weir reached us. Benteen passed him the message and told me to return to my company. They got me a fresh mount, and I rejoined my unit. The pack train wasn't far behind. We could see it about a mile away, mules moving at various speeds. We kept a faster pace than the supply train could manage, and soon they vanished from view, leaving only their dust cloud behind. Thank you for watching today's episode on Empire History Central. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to not miss any episode on this channel and to grow our rising community.